Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name is Dr. Phillips, and nearly 100 American service members have been injured by Iranian attacks this month. And until reporters started asking questions about this, the American public was not told the scale of this. This is coming out of CBS, and I also seen this coming out of the New York Times. CBS News is now reporting that almost 100 service members suffered some degree of injury in Iranian strikes on American positions across the Middle East since July 7th. The Pentagon says 96% have already returned to duty and describes some of the injuries as minor concussions. But CBS also reports something enormously important here. The Pentagon had not publicly disclosed the exact number, and the military's own casualty database had not yet included any of these July injuries. So the obvious question is, did the Pentagon hide the American casualties from the public? And the most accurate answer is abso-fucking-lutely. They are now going to be facing this credible accusation, I might add, a credible accusation that it withheld or at the very minimum disclosed this information to the American public. Important information about Iranian attacks, an illegal and offensive war that is killing our service members and putting them at grave harm and spending billions and billions and billions of dollars of American taxpayer funding to go fight a war overseas when we could have our troops at home. Yeah. You know what? I think that they did fail to tell us, and I think that they're trying to hide it from us because they want to see the military-industrial complex thrive. They want to see it thrive, and they don't want to see us average little peasants be successful. That's what it is. And the New York Times here has affirmed this. They've reported that several Iranian strikes against American forces in Jordan occurred before the deadly attack that killed 2 American soldiers. According to that report here, those earlier attacks injured dozens of service members, yet the Pentagon did also decide to not publicly disclose either the attacks themselves or the resulting casualties of that damage, right? So at the same time, public statements from the U.S. Central Command also emphasized that American strikes against Iran were retaliation for attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. They reportedly did not mention that Iran had also been striking American forces in Jordan, right? Again, these are not omissions, ladies and gentlemen. There's enormous difference between telling the country that we're attacking Iran to protect commercial ships and then telling the country Iran has struck American military bases repeatedly. Dozens of American service members have been injured, and our missile defense system may be failing to stop some of the incoming attacks. These two descriptions here produce very different understandings of the war. You know, again, this is propaganda. This is 1984. One presents a limited operation protecting international commerce, whereas the other describes an escalating regional conflict in which American forces are observing repeated direct attacks. The Pentagon obviously vehemently disputes this allegation. Of course they do. They're going to say that, yeah, no, we didn't conceal anything, bro. We're always so transparent with you, bro. Just like, hey, look, we gave you the Epstein files, bro. When in reality, they hide shit all the time. They still haven't released the fucking Epstein files. They still haven't done it. And all the people who should have been under investigation are somehow still alive and doing well in this world without any prosecution coming towards them. It makes absolutely no sense unless you admit that maybe the government's corrupt. Maybe. And so if you're a conservative here, you know, let me know what your side of the story here is on this here. Because to me, this looks like pure corruption. And I think to anybody with a prefrontal lobe, this looks like pure corruption. Maybe even this might even look like corruption to like a chimpanzee or something, right? Something with very low faculties, right? Because I don't know how on earth you could possibly say that they're being honest and transparent with us. This is insane. You know, the chief Pentagon spokesman here, Sean Parnell, called the accusation baseless and said that military casualty information is publicly available through their system. You know, again, officials are going to say they're not intentionally withholding information, you know, but that defense, it encounters problems immediately, right? You know, you check the database, and at the time of the reporting, their principal wounded in action count lists 413 Americans, right, injured since the Iranian conflict began, which, first of all, 413 Americans is bad enough here, but none contain the injuries from this month. Elsewhere on the same military website, another count listed 427 injuries. In other words, the government pointed journalists towards a public database that was incomplete, internally inconsistent, and then they were missing the very casualties at issue here. Perhaps this is, again, some bureaucratic delay, but as far as I'm concerned, they're hiding something. You know, reporting does not require verification. Injuries can be discovered after an attack, particularly things like concussions. Other symptoms may not be immediately obvious, for example, but these different databases also count combat and non-combat injuries differently. I understand that, but having said that, the administrative delay does not fully answer this underlying question here. Why was this not disclosed and publicly acknowledged? Why? And I think the answer is clear. This is an extremely unpopular war. Trump's approval ratings are in the absolute tank right now. They're in the floor. It's like the most unpopular president in United States history. I mean, for God's sake, man, I don't know how much more corrupt he could possibly get. And again, first term, I think there's a good argument to be made. He was probably the worst president of all time. If not, he's certainly top 3 or something. It's not even close, his second term. Holy shit. He looked like the good guy in his first term. Now it's just absolutely horrible. You can't tell me that you're hiding casualties from the American people with respects to an illegal and offensive war that you started. Again, this is the guy who pulled out of the Iran deal in the first place. Pulled out of it. He says, they're building nuclear weapons, bro, and we have to stop them. This is horrible. They're not abiding by Obama's fraudulent deal here, guys. First of all, yes, they were. They were under full IAEA compliance underneath the JCPOA, the quote-unquote Iran deal, and this was affirmed numerous, countless times over. They were not producing nuclear weapons, and again, you'll still have people like Netanyahu, for example, in Israel, that absolute coward and clown. He'll come out and say, all right, well, it's been since 1990s, you got this guy on record in 4K 60 FPS saying, they're they're days away from getting a nuclear weapon. 30 years. If you believe the propaganda for 30 years, there's something fucked in your head. I'm sorry. It's just the way that it is. Call me crazy. Call me the bad guy for saying that. But I think that we should take our troops home. And I don't think that our troops should be getting injured overseas to fight some stupid war. Look at the price of oil, for God's sake, man. Oh, it's gonna be higher under Kamala Harris. I don't even like Kamala Harris, but I'll tell you what, shit ain't going to be that much higher than Kamala Harris. Not when you got a war hawk like Donald Trump literally kidnapping foreign leaders in foreign countries in illegal and offensive ways, and then pardoning people for those same offenses literally weeks prior. So, everything they say is a lie at this point, right? Everything's verified. And, it's just this giant, this elite fuckfest here where they can do whatever they want and the American people have to suffer. That's essentially what it comes down to here. I mean, for God's sake, ladies and gentlemen, for God's sake, this is a man who is genuinely profiting off of presidential communications now. He's managed to privatize the office of the presidency with respect to his communications. Truth Social, you can now pay what is alleged to be $100,000 a month, right, to get information faster than the American people can as a giant corporation or financial institution. So that way you can make millions and billions of dollars off of his tweets when he says, I'm instituting tariffs or I'm not instituting tariffs, blah, 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 blah. It's all ridiculous. It's crazy. This is all an act. It's all propaganda here. And it's set to make you believe that the war is going well. That's why the war has ended 70 times in the last few months here, right? I mean, every single other day, the war has ended. And their military is totally destroyed. And, I've even seen some conservatives start to wake up now. It's almost like they're having some coming to Jesus moment. They're almost like, wait a minute, if the war has, if their whole army and navy and just Air Force has been completely and utterly destroyed and all their research facilities, well then, how can they still be fighting back? And how can they still be attacking our soldiers? And the answer is because they're not totally destroyed. This is a country of 100 million fucking people. And you're going to sit here and tell me that, we've somehow toppled their entire regime in 2 seconds after we illegally and offensively murdered their leader? They're not going to forgive that. And if they are, they're going to want some grave concessions, which is what we had. We had a deal on the table there. Obviously, it humiliated the fuck out of Trump. And then, so they had to sort of go backsies on that. But Trump sounded like he was probably going to go through with it there, where we were going to have to pay to rebuild the country that we literally just destroyed. Again, there's always an argument for reconstruction. Obviously, you can look at World War I and how that led to World War II. Again, I'm a historian. But in the same breath, we shouldn't have been there in the first place, wasting all of our tax dollars. And also, too, this is not a global conflict. So, what are you doing, bro? This makes absolutely no sense. And, unfortunately, even if we were going to go through that deal, and even if Trump's ego could have remained intact long enough, obviously you had Israel, which decided it was just going to go on a nice genocide campaign again, just bombing every country in existence in the Middle East. And so as a consequence of that, I believe they attacked Lebanon immediately. Just that was 2 seconds, right? So maybe not every country in the Middle East, but they attacked Lebanon immediately, broke the ceasefires. They break the ceasefires hundreds, if not thousands of times. And it's dude, at what point can the American people wake up and say, enough is enough? We need to get new leaders in office. We need a revolution in this country because what we're doing is not working. And when your government's hiding information like this from you to make a war look more popular, that's a major problem. And so, obviously, it sounds like we're going to be dragged in this conflict for quite some time, so they're going to release the numbers now that or they were caught red-handed or we're going to be. So they release it now, but it's just, this is horrible. This is catastrophic in terms of maybe not necessarily the injuries per se, if it's just concussions like they're saying. Either way, one injury is too much there to be out in a war that we shouldn't even be involved in. Bring the fucking troops home. But it's catastrophic in the fact that the government's lying to us, and they're caught again in the act, yet again. They always are, right? I mean, again, like we were mentioning, the Epstein files, for example, they got fucking emails of people literally sanctioning murders, right? It's just 4K, you can see it. They're sanctioning murders, and nobody does anything. All the names are redacted. It's man, I wonder why the names are redacted. There's clearly no government conspiracy there, right? Bro, come on, dude. It's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous at this point. But if you say that, again, then you're in the wrong. But, who am I, ladies and gentlemen? So with that said, if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for some more content, guys. Try to get us up to 600 subscribers. You can follow me on social media at Ian Phillips USA, and we'll talk to you later, guys. Peace.